Hey everybody, I am here with middle school science instructors Josh Pearson and John Ezzell. We're going to talk a little bit about Project Excelsior. So, hey guys, thank you for joining us virtually. Tell us a little bit about the project.
All right, John, you want to take that away?
Well, so we do Project Excelsior as a part of our physical science course with 8th grade, and we use it to study physics, basically the laws of motion and forces. And essentially, we are taking an egg and launching it high up in the air and asking the kids to try to save it on the way down.
And are they successful?
Depends. What was your rate? Mine was about 50%.
Yeah, it's pretty regularly about half and half survive.
The whole thing kind of originated several years ago. Gosh, it's got to be almost 8 years ago now. I went out to a PBL with the Buck Institute, so project-based learning by the premier, these are the guys who created it in the original, and we actually started out with a project called Fling Fly Flow Flop, where they were building trebuchets and launching eggs that way.
I remember that.
And then we tried to modernize a little bit, and it was easier for us to be able to show the kids the applications because they hadn't learned things like angular momentum or things like that, but easier to show the Newtonian physics with the rockets. And frankly, it's easier to store the stuff. We had a problem trying to store our old trebuchets and things like that. But they have two major objectives, three objectives throughout the course of the actual project. They have to design what's called an EPS, which is an extronaut protection system that will keep their eggs safe. They also have to build what we call a DDS, which is descent deceleration system, which is essentially a parachute or some way to bring it down slower. And then tied to those objectives they have to reduce their descent velocity by 5% or more. They have to, what was the other one? They have to decrease their impact energy by 5% or more. And of course, throughout the entire thing is keeping those extranauts safe.
The extranauts, got it.
Yes, the extranauts.
How are you?
Not scrambled.
How are you measuring this? Like, how do you determine that the velocity is decreased?
Well, so we have a device that measures the angle of the launch so we can determine the height. We have the kids measure the mass of their EPS and parachute system. And then Josh made an Excel document. We basically put all each team's raw data in there, and it calculates the height of the rocket, their impact, their descent velocity, and all that data that we need.
I know that there's a lot of cheering that is going on. They run all over together in this big group to see if the egg is whole or not, and they cheer each other on when there is a success.
I wish I had gotten it on because we film it also as well, where we have the teams film it, and one of my teams during their second launch, which is their final launch, their whole rocket basically just got destroyed the first launch. Their EPS was crushed. There was nothing left of the egg. It kind of leaked out the side of its flight suit.
Oh.
And but theirs came down perfectly. Everything went exactly as they had hoped it was, based on their plan. And one of my students, like, all of a sudden I see him do a backflip. Now he's a gymnast and a diver, but it was just funny. Like, he was so excited they just does this backflip right awesome. There. So it's great to see that joy, and it's also I think it's a great lesson on perseverance, especially when they see they don't know what happens during the first one.
Right.
And a lot of them get like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But then they see, you know what, I can do this. If I have a plan and I stick to it, not everything works perfectly, but at least I've got a better shot than I did the first time around. So it's fun to watch them kind of see like, oh, our plan actually did something, right? It helped improve the odds.
Are they working?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think on at least a couple of my classes on the first launch, none of everybody's egg died, except then the last group, theirs survived, and it helped the other teams see like that they could do, it is possible, right? So at first they get kind of demoralized and they think, we can't do this, and then they realize it actually can happen. And so that really does give them kind of a drive to make it work.
Okay.
Survive. And they're working in small groups, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Teams of 3 to 4 generally.
Teams of 3 to 4, and are they all starting with the same materials, or do they have some flexibility on their design?
They have parameters in which they can build. I'm actually going to show you an example. This is an example. This is called the EPS. You can see it's cardboard and foam, right? I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's their parachute right here. So again, they have a certain amount of stuff. We give them credits. Each team is assigned a credit, so they kind of work within a budget.
Okay.
And that number of credits is limited for the entire build. That's from the first launch and the second launch, so you got to plan accordingly. This year, we did allow them to bring in some pre-made things, like, for example, one team had used like one of these old gelato jars. Mm-hmm. But next year, we will make it where it has to be built exclusively from cardboard, popsicle sticks, things like that. And they have to stick within the budget. They can't bring anything from the outside. So
that is really cool.
But the parachute cannot be pre-bought. It has to be,
okay.
That has to be completely constructed. So John's got an example of a student back in the past. Again, this, like anything, this has evolved over time. And we had a student, before we made the rules about no purchasing, who bought an actual parachute that was designed for those rockets that use the Estes rockets. They use the flames to get up high.
And it worked great, but it was an unfair advantage.
It definitely gives an unfair advantage. So they're stuck to things like shopping bags, like this one. And this is an old cut-up umbrella. They've used T-shirts, all kinds of things to come up with ways to bring it down. But as we continue to evolve and add challenges to it, we want them to really work within the parameters of, again, they'll still have a budget of credits, but they're going to have to stick with things like cardboard, popsicle sticks, things like that. And they're allowed to do as much research as they want.
That's cool.
So it'll up the ante a little bit and cause them to use those creative juices.
Right. So your role is less like you're just guiding them and keeping them within the parameters rather than giving them ideas to pursue.
Correct.
Yeah, we try to, facilitate them coming up with ideas and materials to use, because we have ideas of, and we know kind of what works, but we want them, we kind of give them, we talk about the physics behind it to try to push them in certain directions, and sometimes they figure things out and sometimes they don't, but that's really just a part of the process.
Yeah, actually, John, why don't you show the bottle just so people have a perspective of what. One of the other parameters is that this section right here under the nose cap, this is called the fairing, and that's where your EPS had to fit. So that was another requirement, is that when you built it, it has to fit in that little space and then have this top be able to go on without falling off.
Yeah, so in years past, we had students build the rocket as well, and they basically had to design the fins and the nose cone and all of that. But in order to make the project kind of streamline it, we gave everybody the same rocket.
I got you.
And they just had to design the EPS and the parachute system.
I got you. Well, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. I think it's super cool. It's one of my favorite things that we do at the middle school, and so keep it up. And hopefully, I encourage you guys to keep coming up with new ideas like this, putting students in situations where there's no definitive answer. That's what they always want. They want somebody to tell them, how do I do it? And that level of discomfort is where they truly, I do believe, learn.
100%. I think that's also where they feel the greatest success, right? When
sure.
they come in, even if their rocket wasn't successful, they know they did better. There's, in trying to get their calculated impact energy less, one of the things they can control is mass, and so we kind of remind them that, hey, here's the mathematical formula for that. Shout out to our math department. Do what they taught you, right? And use that to your advantage. And even if it doesn't work out, at least you made that attempt and you know that you put something into it that could improve your odds.
Sure.
So
Awesome.
It's less about slapping things together and more about, following a plan.
Yeah, without a doubt. Anyway, appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me virtually, and thanks to everybody out there for all that you do.